Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten, and today, of course, I'm starting a new page in the Outlander coloring book. This one here, the last one that is regarding Jamie's and Claire's wedding. And I'm talking to you about what I want to do with this particular page, what kind of style I want to go for, which colors I choose as focal colors, like standing out kind of colors, what I chose for the neutral or main colors in this particular page, and I'm gonna talk to you about shading and saturation of colors, how you can change up things there. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get to work, right? So let's start this final picture for Jamie's and Claire's wedding before moving on to the next chapter in the story. The story goes as follows for this particular one. You are, I should read what is written, right? And not make up my own words. Here we go. You're blood of my blood and bone of my bone. I give you my body that we two might be one. I give you my spirit till our life shall be done. So these are the vows that Jamie and Claire speak at their wedding, and we have the scene in the chapel. So since the line work is rather thin and not as cartoony, I think this piece would work very well with watercolors and maybe a few colored pencils on top. So I do have my water brush next to me, and you can see on the palette here, if you have been following this videos for a while, I do have my Neo Color 2 crayons with me. So what I want to do today is get this picture base coated, so base colors, and once I have that done, I would like to bring colored pencils in to shade and well, make things a little more interesting. So I'm starting off with the background here. I think, well, for one, I like to color top right to bottom left because I'm left-handed, and that just minimizes the possibility to smudge anything. Now with the watercolors today, that's not going to be a huge problem, but say I would use another medium to do my artwork, that would be a different kind of a story. So let's go in, and I think since, well, these are stones, I'm gonna go for the grays, and I'm going to stay rather light with my colors, so I'm not gonna darken them up too much because I need a little space to shade things later on with my colored pencils. So I'm thinking for the wall in the background, aside from these little alcoves here, I'm not talking about that, but the rest of the wall, I'd like to go for the gray. In the alcoves, I'd like to go one little bit darker and go for the dark gray, and maybe use the same color for the floor as well. So let me grab my crayons. I've got the gray, I've got the dark gray, and start with scribbling a bit of that crayon onto my palette and water it down, liquefy the pigment, and get started with painting. So this is the rather fast part of the process, but because I don't have to be very precise, there is well, there's of course the thing that I gotta check where my lines go, where my colors go, how I move my brush to make everything look nice. If you see brush strokes and not have it look weird because it's maybe not going in the right direction. So would I color those stones in that direction, like horizontally in this case? That wouldn't probably look as great. But other than that, I can work fairly quickly. And on these stones here, I gotta go in the horizontal direction, because that will make things easier later on with shading. And also, if I have a few bits where there's more pigment than on other parts, it just looks a little more natural and not weird. So let's go in here. And I can work, since this is a big surface and I only have to think about fiddly details that much. I mean, I have to regard them and pay attention and such, but it's not that difficult, because I can even work with my big water brush here. It's gonna be a little easier and a little faster to work on. Maybe today I can manage to have this whole picture base coated, which would mean that I guess in the next 2 videos I could work on shading and details with colored pencils then. But I'll have to see that in the upcoming hour or 2, because I'm filming for 2 hours maximum for this video. So we'll see how far I get. I hope you had a great week. Art-wise, maybe worked on some lovely coloring pages or on your own artwork. I would love to hear from you what you did, what you accomplished. So if you want to let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear from you. Need a little more of the light gray to bring in over here. So it's actually Monday for me that I'm filming, and I'm filming way ahead. I had mentioned it a couple of times on this channel that I am currently filming ahead for autumn season and me taking off some time then. But it's actually Monday, quite early in the morning, that I'm filming. And I've been looking forward to doing so over the last couple of days. I enjoyed my weekend off, but also very happy to getting back to coloring and filming and this book. Over the last week, it felt like I would be almost rushing through the book because I got so many pages colored. So that was quite lovely, and it feels like I've been working on this book forever, and I have been, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's been ages since I started coloring in this book. By the way, I'm using a little bit of that light gray underneath the chandeliers, or not the chandeliers, the candle holders here, because there's a little more light coming in comparison to other parts of this picture. So I'm gonna use a little more of a lighter gray to indicate that these candles and candle holders light up the room a bit. So I've been working in this book forever, and I never finished so many pages in just 1.5 weeks now. So that's actually been a lovely feeling. On the other hand, it feels kind of weird because I'm definitely getting to the part of the book where pictures are maybe a little less intricate and lots more of like landscape sceneries, which I think I will definitely use watercolors on, which is quite the fast medium for me. So maybe I can manage to finish the book this year, or very early 2021 at least, because that would be very lovely, I think, because then I can move on to other books in on this show here. So I'm moving on to the dark gray, putting that onto my palette. I need quite a bit because anything that is stone is gonna be colored with that dark gray now. So I'm gonna bring it in back here on these kind of alcove shaped niches in the walls. And I'm just doing the same thing going bit by bit by bit around the candles, bringing in some more of that gray. Maybe I should switch to my smaller brush now. We'll see. Because that is a little more intricate here. But for now, I'm actually able to manage. So I'm using the biggest brush I can use because it changes up the way I move my hand, and therefore it changes up the way that I'm painting. So I have a little more of a looser way of painting, not as restricted. And that is true for any kind of painting. Anything where I need a brush. Doesn't matter if it's coloring or if I'm working on my own art pieces, it's the same thing. Go. Lots and lots of stone. There we are. Onto that little tiny bit down here, and then already coloring where the wall meets the floor, because I'm gonna use the same dark gray for that, but I'm gonna have to color around the light gray now, because I don't want to cover that up. So I gotta be careful just to squiggle it around the light gray that I put in and not go over the first gray tone that I put in on this painting. Like so. And then I can move on to the next part here, that next niche or alcove thing. And though the interior design of the church here looks exactly the same as in previous paintings that I finished, I'm gonna change up a few things here. So for example, this cross is not gonna be metal like I painted it in one of the previous pictures. This time around I'm gonna make it a wooden cross because I want a little bit of contrast in different kinds of colors on this picture, and not necessarily only different shades of gray. That would be the wrong franchise, if you get my horrible pun. But you know what I mean. I'm gonna color Claire's dress. Oh, I forgot a little bit of that lighter gray down here underneath her arms. So I'm gonna get the other brush, paint that in. So I don't want this to be different kinds of shades of gray only with a little bit of red and yellow. I want this, of course, to be true to the colors that were used in the show for this particular picture here. So I'm gonna use gray or silver gray for her dress, for example. I'm not gonna go with the chocolate brown that I used in the first picture, where I went with the inspiration of the book instead of the show. But I'm gonna add a few things to have a few more colors and not only, like I said, different shades of gray. I want a little brown that would probably also fit with the sideboard back here. I'm not sure yet what I want to do with Jamie's jacket. I kind of tend toward the Payne's gray because it just fits better with the tartan. But maybe the priest's jacket could be brown, so there would be color repetition there. Have different shades and colors present, have them repeated in the picture, other than the red of the tartan, I'd say. I don't want to put that anywhere else, I guess. This is almost like the focal point then with that color. So now I gotta check where I need to color. This looks good. So yeah, that's like the big plan for the picture when it comes to colors. Grays, browns, the red for the tartan, yellows for the candles, and beiges, skin tones, of course, for the people, and see what I can do with it. I'm not bringing in any yellows right now for the shine of the candles. I'm gonna do that on top of the watercolor with colored pencil later on. Because there's honestly not a lot of candles here that you would really have a strong light source. So I think that the stones in this church are not lit up like very heavily, like with an LED, I don't know, light chain kind of a thing. I think it's way more subtle. So I guess I don't have to plan this out already with my watercolors here and bring those yellows in and not have the gray underneath. I mean, these are very dark gray stones, so I guess they're not gonna be lit up in a way that I would have to use that color underneath, like on this watercolor layer here. I think I can very easily just add that on top with colored pencils later on, so I'm not gonna bother right now. But I can move on to the floor. Color that. Boop, 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 boop. Still using that dark gray. But I need a little more on my palette, I guess. And of course there's also gray stones back there. And I can go to the next part here. And as you can see on my timer, like within half an hour, you got the majority of the picture already base coated. This is what I mean with watercolors being a very fast medium on these kinds of pages and pictures. So if you've never tried it, I can only highly recommend that you'd give this a try. Maybe you very much like the medium and it gives you a new way or a new kind of coloring process. Gotta concentrate here for a second. There we go, like this. There we are. So yeah, give it a try, guys, in case you've never used watercolor in your coloring books or you haven't tried the medium in any kind of artwork yet. I can only recommend it. Just a tiny smidge more of that dark gray. Just a little bit. Like so. I'm gonna dry this off very quickly because I don't want my paper to peel and buckle too much, and then I can move on with the next color. I will probably go for a Payne's Gray for the chandeliers and the dress for Claire, and probably also the jacket of Jamie, but I'm gonna do that in a hot second. So, this is dry. On to Payne's Gray. I'm gonna use Payne's Gray for her dress, so Claire's dress, for Jamie's jacket, and the candelabras, just like I had said a hot second ago. Editing is such a magical thing. So I'm gonna start off with the Payne's Gray on these candle holders here, and I'm using my smaller brush because now we're getting to the fiddly parts where I can't color something within the lines as much as I can with that bigger brush. I need to have a thinner brush tip here, so that is the way to go. And I gotta concentrate, which makes it a little more difficult to top, but I'm trying my best nonetheless. So with these kind of pictures here that are almost, or can be almost monochrome, you can work with one color as a focal color, like a focal point, to make something quite interesting and stand out in the page. I mean, you can do that with any kind of painting, but it's a little easier maybe with almost monochromatic paintings. I mean, this is not gonna be one, don't get me wrong, but since the major colors are gray and brown and black in this particular one, You can very easily make something pop by just bringing in one color. And in this one here, it's going to be red. Red is the popping color, the focal color in this particular picture. I mean, there's gonna be a few oranges and yellows around the candles, of course, but they're not gonna stand out as much in comparison to the tartan of Jamie, because this is where the dark red is gonna come in. So if you've read the books, you know that the Fraser tartan is black and red. Or if you've been watching these videos like forever, there was a page in the book that I had colored where there was the Fraser tartan, the black and red one, underneath some weapons, I think, if I remember correctly. So of course that red will stand out against all of these rather neutral colors here, all the grays and the browns and such. And red is a way more prominent color than, for example, the yellow and the orange are going to be in this particular page. So by knowing that and being able to choose the shade of red that I'm going to use for the tartan, for example, I can really plan out how much I want Jamie's tartan to be the focal point color-wise, and how much I make it pop. I mean, it will pop a little less than it could because of Jamie's red hair. So he has ginger, auburn kind of hair color. So that's gonna be something that's gonna pop as well. And that will maybe be a little irritating at first with the red from the tartan. But by shading things and adding reds and not only oranges to his hair, it's gonna be a little less irritating. And it will pop even more. So the one picture 2 videos ago, like 2 pictures ago, not 2 videos ago, 2 pictures ago, I worked on another page from this book, my least favorite one, the one where I was whining quite a lot, but I had the same color combo, so that I'm gonna use today. So the one with the red hair and the red tartan, if you look at it, it's kind of irritating at first before I bring in shading colors, but it fits pretty well once I have those in. So since I'm planning on using the same kind of colors, I mean, I'm using a totally different kind of a medium, obviously, but since I'm planning to have the main colors be the same as in that previous picture when it comes to Mr. James Fraser, then you can imagine what he's gonna look like in the end here. I will be able to pull off with shading and not make the orange ginger red hair look weird next to the very dark red and black tartan. Long explanation for a very simple, very simple concept. I know, but I'm coloring while I'm talking, so I'm a little slower with my brain. And there's also a lot of more arms coming in, and also a slower speech, so I'm having way more pauses in between words. Usually I talk way faster. I mean, even though my brain is a little slower and a little weirder, I'd say, than before. I think I'm still quite witty, so usually I talk a hell of a lot faster than I do here today, and that is because I'm concentrating on something else too. I mean, it's mainly a show for coloring and choosing colors, talking about certain concepts, showing you how to, or how you could do something to achieve a certain look on an art piece, in a coloring book, whatever you would like to whatever you would like to work on, or whatever inspires you, maybe. So yeah. Now I'm gonna move on to the big brush for the skirt. I don't need to have all those brush strokes visible from the smaller brush. I can work a little looser and a little faster with the big brush here. And I'm making sure that I follow the direction of the folds with my brush and not color sideways, for example. And you might be a little worried, maybe, that the bodice part, so the upper part of the dress, is way darker, or looks way darker than the skirt here, for example. But let me tell you, that's no problem at all. For one, I can bring in another layer of that Payne's gray and feather things out, darkening them up a bit. And they're just a little lighter on the skirt because there's more water that I use. So by going over my palette with my water brush again and again to pick up that pigment, of course I'm automatically adding a little bit of water. So paint is less highly pigmented / saturated, and that makes for a little bit of a lighter hue here, which is not a problem, as you can see, as I can adjust that with just a second layer of watercolor. And also I have to say that it helps with the shading process later on, because there's a natural light and a natural shadow that comes in with just having a little more water with those watercolors here have different kinds of saturations of the same color, and it can make for quite the interesting pattern to shade and highlight and such. And it can sometimes even be in a way that you don't have to do anything at all anymore for the shading process. So she has kind of like a gray choker, like the same color of her dress around her neck. So I'm gonna color that in, and then I can move on to Jamie's jacket. I'm gonna disregard the buttons and everything for now, because I will very likely either color them in with colored pencil later on, or even gel pens, so I can absolutely disregard those and just go for the fabric here. But I need a little more Payne's gray on my palette, because I also need to color the chandeliers, not the chandeliers, the candelabras here on the other side. So I'm gonna start with that, because I have way more pigment on my palette. So I'm waiting for a second before I move further with Jamie's jacket, and wait till I have a little more water on my palette and a little less saturated, kind of a Payne's gray, because I don't want his jacket to be exactly the same hue or the same darkness as Claire's dresses. I want to have it look very similar, but then have a slight difference, and that is also another trick maybe that you can work with when painting with watercolors in particular. You can use exactly the same color, but depending on how much water you add to it, you can make it look very different on your artwork. And that is a concept that I like to work with a lot, and where I often say, especially on the videos for my kids' channel, you don't need to have every color in the rainbow. You can mix colors on your own. You don't need to have every kind of art supply. But also, depending on the medium, and watercolor really is the medium where I can make that happen the most, where it's the easiest to work with that kind of concept. Depending on how much water you add to something or to a certain color, you can make it look so different. So different. So you don't need to have 15 kinds of shades of cool grays. You just maybe need 3 and you're good to go. You can make something look very different, very interesting. Almost getting to the point where I can move back to Jamie's jacket with the amount of water I do have mixed in with the Payne's Gray. But I'm gonna finish the candelabras first and then finish up that lighter Payne's Gray part of the picture, which is Jamie's jacket. Once I have that, and I'm gonna make myself a tea because I totally forgot to make one before starting to film. Now that I'm already working on it, I can feel like a dry throat coming in, and I don't like that too much. So I gotta make myself a tea in a minute before moving on maybe to the brown parts of this picture, to all the furniture and such. But one thing after another, onto the big brush and Jamie's jacket. I'm gonna use the same color for the top over here, like his socks. I'm gonna use that. Maybe I'm gonna let me think. There he has a belt like where he's holding on for the tartan, and also his weapon is strapped to it, and there's a part of the belt here. You can see the belt here and the sword here, where there's a little gray probably as well. So why not color them in right away and use the Payne's Gray for it. So I'm gonna add just the tiniest bit to my palette and mix it in with the rather watered down portion of the Payne's Gray. Just color in, it's not really much of a difference, so should probably switch to the smaller brush, add even more Payne's Gray to my palette, pick it up with that brush, and add a second layer. That's more like it. Same here, pick it up. And there's metal parts on the sword down here, like on the sheath of the sword, so I'm gonna add the Payne's Gray to this section as well. Even go in with a second layer, darkening it up a little bit. So that would be Jamie's jacket. And now I'm quickly gonna make myself a tea, and then I'm gonna move on to the wooden parts or the brown parts of this particular picture. All right, now that this is dry, I gotta clean up my palette a bit because I need quite a bit of space for other colors to put in and not have everything have a tiny little gray tint to it. So I'm just using my spray bottle with water, just plain water, nothing added to clean up my palette, and I'm just wiping the remaining pigment off with a paper towel. Ta-da! Easy to clean. Oh, I don't need another piece of paper. I still have my piece of paper towel underneath my brushes, so I can put that back to use later on other paintings maybe. Go in here. There we go. Off to the side. On to the next colors. I had said that I wanted to use a couple of browns. For the cross, the sideboard or altar, whatever you want to call it, Claire's hair, the jacket of the priest, maybe that would be something. I don't want to put anything aside from the sword sheath, anything brown on Jamie. So let me choose browns for that. I'm definitely gonna go with raw sienna for Claire's hair because I want this to be a little lighter. I'm gonna use the brown for, let me see, raw sienna, Van Dyke. This should be the brown, and it is. I'm going to use the brown for the priest jacket and the sword sheath. And I'm going to use a Van Dyke brown, which is a cool brown, for the cross and the sideboard. I think that works fairly well. Maybe I'm gonna use the light brown also for his hair. Guess so the raw sienna that I'm gonna use for Claire's hair. Gonna use that for the priest as well. And I'm gonna make it look a little different. By the way, I'm going to shade things later on with colored pencils. So they're not gonna look like siblings here when it comes to hair color. But I'm still having color repetition, which, you know, I'm very keen on. So that would be that. On to the brown. There I need a little more. Because I have a bigger surface to color. I don't know why. Something is in that particular crayon, that particular color, that almost dries up my brush. Not very fond of it, but well, what to do? So I'm just definitely screws with my brush bristles here. Not very fond of it, but well, we can manage, or I can manage. That is the great thing about these brushes, by the way. It's not only the water tank, like having everything combined in one tool, but also the bristles are quite durable. So that brush will last you for quite a while. And I had said the bit here of the short sheath is going to be of the same color. Now I'm going to bring in another color for the shirts and that vest or whatever it is of the priest later on. But for now, I'm just gonna move on. Maybe do I want the cross to be the same color? Nah, not really. I'm gonna move on to Van Dyke Brown, which is a cool brown, almost like a walnut. It moves quite easily into the background, which is awesome, because the altar and the cross are in the background for one. Also cooler colors or cooler hues of colors move into the background quite easily. So I don't have to work as much to have it look like the priest stands in front of the altar and the sword, the cross and such. The brown color that I chose will naturally help with that. And also, since it is a darker brown than the raw sienna that I used and the other brown shade for the jacket, it automatically moves into the background as well because it is a darker color. And hold on, just a reminder from the calendar. And since where was I? Oh yeah, since there's way less light in the background. Here the light is in the midground and foreground. It is fairly easy and, well, kind of nice that the Van Dyke Brown automatically suggests that the object is in the background because there's less light on it. Not as visible. And if you look at things in real life, you might realize that things that are further away from you are, for one, less detailed. So you can see everything on a certain object. And also, they seem a little less lighted, or depending on the light that you are surrounded by, they're almost overexposed when it comes to light. So you can't make out details because it's either too bright. Say you look across a plain field, and then there's houses at the end of the field, and they appear to be light. So maybe a white house or light yellow painted house. They seem way brighter because you can make out the detail, and it's just a blob. If, on the other hand, say you are in a church or a cathedral, the lighting is not that great, and it is maybe later in the evening, so you don't have bright sunlight coming through windows. Parts of the church, niches, altars, and such, they could almost be invisible because there's not enough light. So you have kind of the opposite thing going on. Things move into the background because they're hardly visible since they are far away and lighting isn't great. So they're way underexposed and to light. So that is a concept of filming, of lighting, of photography and such. Exposure always also is used in any kind of film work or photography. So you can apply the same concept to painting as well. That's actually one thing I'd like to do a lot. That helps me getting my values right when it comes to shading. Is thinking about, okay, would I be in that location, whatever location I am currently painting? What would it look like if I would have a camera and work on photography? Would I have overexposure, so be very light in a certain part of a picture? Or could I hardly see something because, well, it would appear to be way darker on a photograph, for example? So I'm checking with what I see in real life, and I also think about what a picture, like a photography, kind of a photo would look like of that same area, and that helps me personally to get my values right and play with light and shadow and have it look kind of realistic, apply these kind of concepts to my pictures. And since I love photography, especially portraits, I love photographing people. I automatically have things in mind when it comes to physics, and the way I can apply that knowledge to my paintings, especially when it comes to choosing colors for paintings. Meanwhile, I do have my go-to kind of set of colors, where for one, I really love to use them because they're awesome, and I just like those kinds of colors. But also, I know that they work together perfectly. So, might be a little bit of a feeling like, yeah, you're only working in the safe zone, or you're cheating, or whatever. But I don't see it that way because, well, I'm working with the concept of colors. Now, on to the vest and the shirt of people. So for the shirt, I want to use the beige as the base coat. For the vest, though, I kind of like that olive brown. I will probably I won't reuse that anywhere in my painting, but that is fine. This is a very subtle color as well, so I think I'll definitely get away with not reusing that color. And what I also want to do is take care of the skin tones all in one go, and I'm gonna take flesh for that, for all of the three people on this page. And I'm gonna do shading and slight differences later on with colored pencils then. And I think I gotta sneeze. I don't want to. So sorry if I'm sniffling here, but I might have to sneeze in a hot second. So I'm starting off with the flesh tone, cleaning up my brush, picking up the color, and going from right to left. Again, coloring in a base coat for all the participants at the wedding. So there's skin tone here. I'm not gonna take care of eyes and such and eyebrows. That will be done with colored pencils. I won't bother with my watercolors here. So on to Mr. Fraser. Just gotta do the legs. And the other one too. There we go. And then I can move on to the next color, which is going to be the beige for Jamie's shirt. His kind of color. I don't know. It's actually, I think it's the predecessor. Previously, a necktie would have looked like that. Nowadays they look very different, but I think that's what it is. And then on to the olive brown, just a tiny bit. It is a brown color, but it has a greenish tint. It's almost like a khaki kind of a color. So it fits here pretty well, I guess. There we go. Doesn't look weird. On to Jamie's hair. Now, since I'm using the current Sneer color 2, I'm definitely gonna take saffron as my color for Jamie's hair. I really like that color anyways, but I mean, orange is my favorite color, so of course. a warm orangey tone is a color that I'm gonna like anyways. But yeah, I'm gonna use that because it's not the Ron Weasley kind of a ginger. He has a little more auburn in his hair. So I'm gonna take crimson, alizarin crimson, is that? Yeah. No, hold on. Crimson alizarin, so other way around. I'm gonna put that on top. That's kind of a desaturated dark red, cooler shade. I'm gonna put that on top. That's kind of like the exception for this particular page here. For all the other parts, I only had one color as a base coat for something, and I would work on the rest with colored pencils. But for the red hair, I think I just need the red and orange because it's way easier to, well, shade things well, if you know what I mean. So now I need I'm not gonna color the candles because I just want to shade them with a cream color, but I need a yellow for the flames, and I'm gonna go rather light with a pale yellow to just give him a base coat, and I will work on the rest with colored pencils. And I don't have a very light cream color. I mean, the beige color is the only kind of cream color, or the flesh tone. I don't have any other kind of cream color in my set of crayons here. And I don't want to have any of the shades that I already used on the candles. I want them to be white or very light ivory colored. So I'm just gonna leave them white and work with my colored pencils because I know I have the right colors in the Polychromos set. And I'm just gonna base coat the flames here because I want to have enough space to darken them up or make them a little more interesting and shaded and sophisticated with colored pencils later on. There we go. Do I have all of the candles? Yes, I do. Now I can move on to the final two things, which is the tartan and the boots. And then I can finish the video and do the rest next week. So I'm gonna choose my black crayon. The tartan is black and red, a dark red it says. And since I'm gonna put colored pencil on top, I can go with a rather light tone, and as you can see I don't have that many red tones. On the other palette here there's only pinks and purples, so they're not suitable for what I want to do. So I'm gonna go with the scarlet red. And yeah, scarlet red. Put that on my palette and start coloring, and then bring in the black. But first it's gonna be the red. There we go. So I'm just gonna go with lines here. And this illustrator gave me quite a bit of lines to work with, which is awesome. It makes it easier on where to put, makes it easier for where to put what color. So I'm gonna just follow those lines here. Color those in quite roughly. I think I had said it in a previous video that I think tartan is the one thing that is always easiest to color with colored pencils, because you can definitely control very well where you want things to go and what kind of rectangle you want to have colored in with what shade of whatever color. It's a little less controllable, or well controllable, with watercolors, because, well, for one, it's depending on the size of your painting, it might be a little rougher to not have colors bleed into each other. But also shading and such of tartan, which I'm definitely gonna do with the colored pencils, is maybe a little more difficult with only watercolors on this kind of surface here, or at least I'd say it's a real pain in the butt. But that is totally fine, because I'm just base coating here, and I'm definitely planning on adding any kind of shading, any kind of detail at all with colored pencils. I'm not gonna do that. With watercolors, I'm not gonna bother. So now that I'm done with the red, final color to add is black. I hardly ever use black in my artwork. I like to prefer other colors, like mixing them, like for example a purple with a gray, or a blue and a gray and a brown and a blue and such, to achieve something that looks like a black. But in this case here, I'm taking the black watercolor crayon, because for one, it's not gonna be like a dull kind of a black, since I'm putting other media on top later on. And though black can look dull, especially with acrylics, I find that black looks rather flat and kind of dull. It almost dulls down the paint. If you mix it with another color, it's not as bright as if you say would mix a dark brown and a dark blue to make a very dark gray / almost black color and shade. I don't know, maybe a dark green or a green anyways. So with watercolors and the knowledge that I'm gonna put a colored pencil on top, where I can make this not look dull and flat, I'm okay with using black here and not going for, say, the Payne's gray or the charcoal gray. You can see now that the black is starting to dry already. It almost is like a gray shade, not a very harsh black. So I'm totally fine with using the black crayon, though I usually quite shy away from it. I wonder if you are very happy using black, be it with watercolors or acrylics or I don't know, colored pencils, pastels, as a shading color or a mixing color. Like, I don't mean pure black on a certain part. I mean like a mixing color or a shading color. I would love to know how you feel about it, if that is your preferred way of, say, darkening up a color if you mix your own, or if you shy away from it too, because maybe of the same reason that I'm shying away from black as a shading or a mixing color. I would love to know, so if you would like to tell me, I would very much appreciate that. Because I'm not gonna change up my way I do artwork depending on what you're saying, but I'm just so curious of what your thought process is about what you feel like when it comes to certain techniques, certain ways to achieve a particular goal. Just curious, guys. So if you would like to let me know, I would very much appreciate that. And since I'm almost done with the underpainting here, I just need to color in the boots, and I'm gonna use black for that as well. I hope you had fun watching this video, maybe got inspired, maybe you're working on that page too, and would like to show me what you chose as colors and what you are going for, what kind of a look and such, and what media you are working with. I would love to know, so you can tag me on Instagram or DM me a picture there, or do the same thing pretty much on Facebook. I would love to see your creations, because I very much enjoy them. And yeah, I hope you had fun. The blog post for this particular page is up by now. You can hop on over to my webpage, pinselgeschichten.de, and look it up. So all the crayons are listed on that post. And I need a little more of the black. There we go. And in case you watch this video way later or way after it has been released, and you want to look up things on my blog, just go to the search bar on my webpage, enter the title of this video here, and you will be directed to the accordant blog post right away, because I'm naming my blog post after the video. So you can find things easily and don't have to guess what I might named my blog post. So there we go. There's the black. This is the underpainting done. Thank you very much for watching. Like I said, I'm gonna see you next week with colored pencils on this particular page. I hope you had fun, and I'm gonna see you. Take good care, guys, and have a wonderful day. Bye.